Hi everybody, Steven here. I've done some videos in the past on a thing called Site Recovery Manager, or known today as Live Recovery. Now, maybe you're a small shop and you don't have two sites to replicate to, or maybe you can't afford to buy Live Recovery, but you've got a single site and you want to be able to protect your VMs. And how can you do that? Well, that's where this thing called vSphere Replication comes into play. So we'll take a look at what it is, how to set it up. I will also wrap up the end of it talking about some settings that you're going to want to make sure that you do from a best practices perspective. So stick around. We'll see you in a bit. Bye for now. Hi everybody, thanks for sticking around. So in this video we're going to talk about vSphere replication. Now some of you might have watched my Site Recovery Manager videos. This is sort of like along those lines, but this is suppose if you don't have multiple sites and you want to protect your VMs. I'm a small shop. How can you do that? There's a thing called vSphere replication that allow you to do that, and that's kind of what I'm going to show you in this video. How I can do this in a single site environment, right? So maybe I don't have storage arrays. Maybe I don't have multiple sites. Maybe I can't afford to buy Site Recovery Manager. So that's what this one's about. So what we're going to want to do here is now before I begin. It's got a couple slides to show you, but before I begin, if this is stuff that you kind of like, consider supporting the channel. It's totally free. Just got to click that subscribe button, right? Also, another ways to support the channel is liking and sharing videos. That helps with the YouTube analytics. Leaving comments and questions. I answer all comments and questions, okay? So again, all that helps out with YouTube analytics. And I also have super thanks enabled, but that's totally up to you. So why don't we get started here, okay? So let's take a look. Let me get my iPad going here. Yeah, okay, that's good. Oops, let's get that and recurrent. There, that's a little better. All right, let's talk about vSphere replication, okay? So what vSphere replication allows us to do, one second. Forgot to grab my pen. So it allows us to replicate a VM from one location to another. That location could be across sites, just like in this little picture here. Or again, if you got a small shop, you could actually be replicating between clusters, let's say, or data stores, just for a way for you to, have a way to protect your VMs and have a copy of it in case something should happen. The original blows up, you can actually do a restore. And in this video, I'll show you how we set this up and how we restore it. Also in this video, I'll show you, you got to stick around to the end on this one. I'll show you one of the things that you won't probably realize, especially if you just go with the default settings, and I'll show you how to implement what's referred to as a best practice, okay, something to watch out for. But you got to stick around to the end. So vSphere replication, now, you can do this between multiple vCenter servers if you want to. So you got a protected site and a recovery site, so a site A and a site B. So you can do stuff like that. In this case, you've got VMs over here on one site and host, and VMs and hosts on another site. You've got your vCenter servers, one at each site. You're probably going to use a thing called Live Recovery as well, recovery, or also called Site Recovery Manager, okay? And then you install the appliance and so on and so forth, okay? I'm just going to show you basically what it does from a single site perspective. So let's look at this from a single vCenter perspective. So you've got your vCenter server. You've got your ESXi hosts. Maybe you got two clusters here, maybe two vSAN clusters or whatever the case may be, all right? So my picture here, the beautiful thing about vSphere replication, it's software replication. So as long as you've got supported storage, and I really don't care what storage you have, as long as it's supported by vSphere, you could use it for replication. I could have vSAN over here on the left, and I could have, I don't know, fiber channel over here on the right, whatever the case may be. So again, it's storage agnostic, right? Now, the first thing I want to point out here is the vSphere replication appliance. So this is, you'll download from the Broadcom support site. Again, you have to be licensed for that. You'll download the ISO for vSphere replication. I'm going to show you that. I'll show you how to deploy it, not download it. You mount the ISO, and in there, there's an appliance that you can deploy. Now, the appliance is kind of two components. So when I look at the main appliance here, there's the management component of it. You'll notice that this is represented a database. There's actually a Postgres SQL database built into the management replication appliance, and that keeps track of various statistics and your configuration and all that. And there's also a server component. The server component is where the replication occurs. So this replication appliance is a management and server for replication to occur. Now, one of the things you'll see with vSphere replication, especially version 9 now, it supports up to 4,000 VMs. Actually, 5,000 VMs if you're using Site Recovery Manager, if I remember. Sorry, it supports up to 4,000 VMs in total. Okay, let's just stick with that number for now. And what that means is this server component can handle up to 400 VMs. Well, let's say you've got 800 VMs or 900 VMs or whatever. We would then deploy optional vSphere replication server components. So the ISO will have the OVFs for the management server and just the server, the replication server. So this is why you see this called vSphere replication management server. It's a management and a server. And then this one here is just the replication server. It's dumb. It's not the management. There's no database on there. So you can deploy an optional of these up to 9. So that means if each one does 400, I got 9 over here, and then I have one over here. That's a total of 10, therefore 4,000 VMs. Now there's a thing called enhanced replication mode, which is new in version 9. And in version 9, you can go all the way up to 5,000 VMs now. And when we look at my picture, I'll come back to that enhanced replication in 2 seconds here, and I'll actually be demoing the enhanced replication because that seems to be the future. So what do we see here? So on our ESXi host, you see this vSphere replication agent. When you deploy the appliance, it does not deploy the agent for you. The agent, the vSphere replication agents, already exist on your ESXi host, whether you're using it or not. It's already there. It just gets activated when this is set up. So it's already there. So we're not pushing out an agent. There's also the iSCSI filter. I probably should get rid of the vSphere replication. It's an vSCSI is a virtual SCSI filter. I should be saying not an iSCSI filter. You notice your VM over here. These are the VMs I want to protect, right? And basically these filters, again, when the VM goes to send I/O out to its virtual disk, to its VMDK, which sits down here on our storage, it goes through this virtual SCSI filter. So this SCSI filter knows exactly what blocks have been changed on this disk and how often they're being changed, because it's got to travel through it. And that's what you kind of see in my picture. So this SCSI filter is aware of any blocks that are being changed. So now when you want to replicate, the replication agent, I know it's showing you here from the SCSI filter, but the replication agent basically can send it to the replication server on the appliance, which in turn would send it out to the target wherever it's going. So let's say I'm replicating this VM. This is VM1 here, and that's going to be a replica of VM1, and it's going to replicate it to this volume. So it can go through this appliance, or it can go through the replication server. Again, it can automatically pick which one for you, or you manually assign it. Remember I said you can do up to 400 each? That's kind of the idea. So you can manually assign it or have the replication appliance pick and choose for you. Totally up to you. And I'll kind of show you that when we get into demoing it, right? Now you'll notice the port that it's being used here, port 31031 and port 32032. It's all TCP. Let me get rid of that. So if it's non-encrypted, it's 31031, that's port TCP. If it's encrypted, it's port 32032, okay? So you get that choice. Notice over here I mentioned something about change blocks after initial sync. So great, here's my VM over here. It's, whatever, 1 terabyte in size, All right, so I decided I want to replicate that to protect it. Well, basically, it's got to fire that stuff across here. So that whatever I said, 10 terabytes, whatever, 1 terabyte, whatever it was, it's got to dump it across here. That's the initial sync. So that could be pretty intense. And there's a thing called a seed disk, and you'll see this when I'm doing a demo, right? You get the option of selecting a seed disk. That means, well, maybe I don't want to dump 10 terabytes of traffic across my wire here right now. Maybe what I'll do is I'll make a clone of this VM, throw it on a USB stick or something like that, and then bring it across to this location and upload it to the data store manually, right? So now when I set up replication, I say, here's the seed disk, use that, okay? And then I don't have to dump everything across. I'll kind of show you that when I get into the demo, right? So there's the initial sync, which is basically I'm dumping everything across, okay? After that, it only does change blocks. So remember, the vSCSI filter knows what blocks have been changed since the last replication, okay? I don't know why my phone keeps ringing. So it knows what blocks have been changed since the last replication. So, like I said, we use change block tracking after the initial sync. So, the one thing I want to point out over here, there is the application management interface, or VAMI, for the replication appliance. So once you deploy it, you need to configure it. You need to link it to the vCenter server, the platform services controller, right? And I'll show you all that as well. I think that's pretty much about it that I can recall. So why don't we go ahead and jump into doing the demo, okay? Be right back. Okay, so why don't we deploy the appliance right now? So before we do that, just explain my environment. I've got a single cluster here. I've got 3 hosts and it's using vSAN. Ignored the errors there. I was messing around. So I've got vSAN running, and I've got a data store. Then you'll also notice I've got a separate host. So what I'm going to do is I've got VMs running on my cluster. Okay, I've got a separate host here that actually has local storage. If I actually click on data stores, you'll see it actually is obviously not connected to the vSAN data store, and it's got a local storage. So what I'll do is I'll replicate my VMs from this cluster over to that host. Now you can pretend that it's from one cluster to another, you know, it's all the same process here. Okay, so let's deploy the appliance. Let me right click on a host, say deploy OVF. Oh, actually before I do that, let's go and mount it. I could do it from here, but let's go in and let's get the replication appliance. You notice I'll be using 9.0, 9.0.2. It's an ISO. So let's mount that. So I'm going to mount it. There we go. And it's under my E drive. Excellent. All right, let's go back to here. Let's go to local files, upload files. I'm going to go to my E drive I just mounted. Okay, so you download that replication ISO from Broadcom support type of thing. I'm going to go into the bin folder. From there, you see a bunch of files. Now, I'm deploying the replication management appliance. That's the first one. So basically, I need to deploy these files here. You see the other add-ons? Those are for the replication server only, okay? So I don't need those, okay? So I'm just gonna basically, so if I was doing the replication server only, I would select the VMDKs, then I would select those, and that would be the replication server only. I need to deploy the replication management server. That's basically a combo of both. So I'm gonna pick that, I'm gonna go open, I'm gonna go next. It's gonna ask me for the name. I'll type in order site A dash vSphere replication dash 01. I'm gonna go next. I could pick my host or whatever, it doesn't really matter. I'll go next. I can have the cluster figured out. Then we let this thing churn away for a little bit, give it a few seconds. And come on. There we go. You got a little review of the details here. It shows you it's going to deploy it. Thin provision, it's about 2.1 gig thick. It's 33 gig. So I'm just going to say next. Read through the license agreement, okay, folks, and accept it if you want to. Now, my cluster is running vSAN. Pick the appropriate data store where you want this. This is a VM, so pick the appropriate data store where you're going to put that. So I'm going to put in my vSAN data store. I'm going to go next. What network is this going to be plugged into? I'm going to plug this into my management network. It only has one NIC in it. So I'm actually going to plug this one into the management network. Technically speaking, no, it actually has more than one NIC, but I'm going to put it on my management network. Perhaps I'll do a video later on, maybe on the separate NICs and stuff like that. But for now, I'm just going to keep it simple. It's going to go on my management network so I can reach it. I'll say OK. I'll go next. And then over here, it's asking me about, do I want to enable SSH? In my lab environment, I'm going to enable SSH. Again, in your environment, you got to see what your security requirements are. I'm going to type in the root password. Let me just, again, I don't care if you see my password here. It's a lab environment. It gets blown away a lot. So let me put in the root password, the admin password. I'm going to paste those in. Now it's asking me for my NTP server. So time synchronization is very important here. So you want to make sure you got a proper NTP server. So here are my NTP servers that I actually use in my lab environment. What's the host name of this thing is going to be? You need fully qualified domain name. So this is a site-vr-01.vclass.local. You need forward and reverse lookups, okay, folks? So make sure you got your DNS all set up. File integrity flag. I've been reading a couple of things on this one. It says this will be used as file as a flag whether to enable file integrity. I'm not going to bother with it, but in the real world, you probably should select this. Now, this, I've read, checks the integrity of the binaries that you're installing, so this appliance is going to check that. That's what I actually read in the documentation. But I also read in other documentations where it says it checks the appliance's boot files to make sure they haven't been tampered with, right? So probably good, I'm going to check it off. It's probably a good thing to select anyways, either one that it does. Now, how am I going to assign an IP address to this appliance? Again, you can use IP4, IP6. I'm just going to use IP4. I'm going to do basically static here, okay, and not DHCP. And it's asking me for my default gateway. In my lab, it's 172.20.10.10. My domain name, this is vclass.local, just my domain, whatever your domain is, and what your search path is for your domain. So I'll type in vclass.local as well. It's going to ask you for your name servers. Mine's 172.20.10.10. It's going to ask you for the IP address of the appliance. 172.20.10.25 is mine. Again, you should have a reverse lookups to that host name. And then what's the prefix for this? It's 24-bit prefix. That's it. It's pretty straightforward. I'm going to go click next. Gives you a summary. You're going to hit finish. And at that point, it's deploying the appliance. Okay? So it'll probably take about 5-10 minutes. I'm not going to bore you with putting this in fast forward mode. We'll just let it run. And I'm going to come back probably in 10 minutes just to check it out. All right? So we'll see you back in a bit. And by the way, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, please consider supporting the channel. Again, just by hitting that subscribe button, that helps support the channel. Liking also helps supporting. Sharing content also helps supporting. So see you back in a bit. Okay, so we're back. Finished deploying. It's been about 10 minutes. I powered it on, okay? Then I gave it probably about 5 more minutes just to come up and settle in. There's a database in there as well. So let's look at the web console of it. Not really a whole lot to look at, but it does tell you, there at the top where to go and check it out for the management interface. Let's close that. Let's open up the management interface. So let's type in https:// I'm going to type in my fully qualified domain name of the new appliance and port 5480. I'm going to hit enter. It's asking me to log in. I'm going to log in with the admin account, type in my password, and then boom, right off the bat it shows me the version I'm using, the build, and the appliance here. I can restart the appliance if I wanted to, download support bundles, whatever. There's other stuff over here. You can monitor disks. You can look at access over here. This is where, again, you could change the appliance password, SSH, certificates. I'm just using the self-sign ones, but you could change that. Networking, again, it just shows me I only got one interface here. I may do a video on putting in multiple interfaces on these. I'll have to see what the interest is on this video first. But anyways, if you're interested in seeing that, let me know. You'll see NTP over here. Again, here we go. I've got that set up. My time zone. I'm going to change my time zone here to UTC. I'm going to change it to where I am. And let's just, where are you? Come on. America's Toronto right there. I'll say save that. That's my time zone. You'll notice down here this little. Always wait. See this green bar down here at the bottom? I see that sometimes when you're configuring it. If you've watched my Site Recovery Manager videos, you've seen those as well. I always wait until this bar gets all the way across. Unless it's kind of, it says it's success, time zone updated, but again, it's still kind of sitting there, right? So I'm just gonna give it a a few more seconds just to make sure everything goes across. Okay. There we go. It's speeding up. Oh, slowing down. So I'm not sure why it takes like that, but anyways, I always wait. To be honest with you, on the safe side. If you watch my Site Recovery Manager videos, when we set up the storage replication adapter, it did the same thing. So this thing's just chugging along a little slower than normal, to be honest with you. There we go. It's done. We just had to wait. Again, I can look at the various services if I wanted to, start and stop them, whatever. This is where you would set up syslog forwarding, okay, and update. This is where you would update the appliance, okay. I may do a video on this with a later build, but essentially you mount the ISO. You can mount the ISO inside the appliance and update it that way. Anyways, let's configure this thing. Let's go to configure appliance. It's going to ask me for the platform services controller. That's where my vCenter server is. So this is the vCenter server I'm pairing this with. That's the port I'm using. I'm going to type in the administrators. No, I'll just click it from there. Obviously, you've seen I've had it before. And then the password. So this is my platform services controller. I'm going to click next. It comes up, says it can, I'm using self-signed certificates. I'll tell it to connect. And then it's saying, okay, it looked at the platform services controller and it says, which vCenter server do you want to pair with? Okay. If I had like enhanced link mode, multiple vCenter servers on a single sign-on domain, then I would have a list of them here. I just got the one. I'm going to pick next. And it comes up with a certificate. Now at this point, just before this screen, if your NTP, if the skew and the time between the replication server and the vCenter server are off, it would give you a warning that you need to fix it before it continues. So watch out for that. Okay. What do you want to call the site? You may want to call it something that makes sense. I'm just gonna call it my site. Call it something that makes sense for your environment. Put in your administrator's email address. Again, I'm just going to type in admin at ABC, whatever. Maybe I should type in something a little bit more e-class, not local, whatever. Type in your proper email address. The local host here, again, the address of the local host to be used for the vSphere replication. That's what this appliance is, right? And extension ID, since... If I talk about this actually in the, this is something different. Ignore that. And then the storage traffic IP, again, notice it says here it's optional. It says you must match one of the appliance's IP addresses or NICs. If empty, the appliance IP will use. So I said before, I could actually add on multiple NICs on this thing if I want to. So right now I've got one NIC configured, and that's the NIC I'm going to use to manage this, and that's the NIC that's going to use for the traffic, okay? So you can actually configure multiple interfaces if you want to, one for management, one for certain traffic if you want to. I'm just going to go with the default and leave it alone, okay? And I'm going to go next. And that's it. I go ready to complete, I go finish, and then I just wait. I give this thing a few minutes to do its little business here, okay? So it's just going to spin around for a bit, and we'll wait and see. I'll probably speed this up. Okay, so it's finished configuring. Now let's go back to here. Let's go back into the vSphere client, and I'm just going to do something. I'm just going to refresh. I'm going to completely close it, and I'm going to log back in. Technically, I don't really have to do that, but I'm going to do it anyways just to show you something. So let me log back in. Okay. And one of the things I should see here, if I go into the main menu, if I scroll down, I should see Site Recovery Manager here, SRM. That's the client plugin that's installed. I don't see it. So what's going on? Let's go into administration. Let's go into client plugins. Oh, and we do see that Site Recovery Manager was deployed, right? but I still don't see it in here. I'm just gonna, actually, I'm kind of shocked that I actually saw that this was deployed, to be honest with you. A lot of times it comes up with an error, and I've seen it happen with the version 9s, 9.0, 9.01, 9.2, you know, but with the version 8s, I never seen a problem with it. And a lot of times I got to bounce the vCenter server. So I'm going to reboot my vCenter server, come back in about 8 minutes, and then we should see that plugin over here. So I don't see anything here at this point, right? So be right back. Okay, we're back. I bounced the vCenter server. It's probably just one of the services that need to be restarted. I didn't troubleshoot it enough. Just figured I bounce it's faster for me. Anyways, like I said, I've never seen that issue before with version 8s. I've seen it with the version 9s. I don't know why. But anyways, I've logged back into my vSphere client, and you now see site recovery over here, right? I want to show you something before I go into there. Actually, let's do it. Let's click on site recovery, and over here, again, this is the plugin that got installed when I when I configured the appliance, right? So you see over here, here's my vSphere replication. Everything's good. You see the version, and then I can open up site recovery here, and then at that point, it's bringing me into the replication appliance. I'm going to actually close this. I want to show you something here. Actually, let me back up. Let's go into here first of all. Inventory. So how do I protect a VM? I'm going to right click on one of my VMs here, and when I right click on it, if I scroll down, you'll see site recovery over here, and you'll see configure replication. Right? When I click on that, boom, it comes up. All right, I'm going to cancel this. Oh, this is something kind of drove me up the wall. Let me open up Firefox here for a second. All right, not now. And let me type in local, and so I'm logging back. Oh, okay, I put a dash there. So I'm going to log back into my vCenter server with my Firefox. I can't type or spell today. Probably should have just picked that and been done with it. It would have been faster. So I'm going to log in. Okay, so I see I got the plugin. Great. No problems. If I right click on my web VM, site recovery, configure replication, it just kind of disappears, right? You got to make sure, again, there's no warnings here. You got to make sure that you've got pop-ups enabled. So if I go into my settings here in Firefox, let me just do a search, pop-ups. I wasted a lot of time with that. Pop-ups, block pop-up windows. I'm just going to say no to that. Let me go back into, close that. Now let's try it again. Right click, site recovery. There we go. Now it's going to the appliance. That's why I'm getting that, because I've got self-signed certificates. So watch out for that. I'm going to close this down. I'm going to do it with Chrome. So watch out for that. I wasted a fair amount of time on it. And normally you'd see a warning up here with the pop-ups. But anyhow, so let's configure replication on Web 1. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to site recovery, configure replication, and then I'm going to pick my target site. Now notice over here, enhanced replication. This is new as of version 9. It says improved performance, scalability, functionality, enables 1 minute recovery point objective. I'll talk about that shortly. And auto scaling and load balancing, okay? So what that means is it has the ability, and I kind of talked about this in the little lecture part, but it has the ability to load balance across the servers, and it doesn't need that replication server anymore. Again, that's kind of a new feature in version 9. So we can bypass that. We just go straight from the source right over to the target ESXi. Auto scaling every 30 minutes, it's actually, auto load balancing every 30 minutes, it's actually checking this, and it can actually load balance across the host, which is kind of neat. I haven't played with that feature as of yet. So that's enhanced replication, which I'm going to set up right now. Legacy replication, again, this is just like before, the prior version 8 and older. You would pick, okay, what replication server do I want to send the traffic to, and it will send it to the ESXi host, right? It can auto assign. Again, remember, the management server also has a replication server in it, which I mentioned. Or you can manually select so if I had deployed just replication servers as well, I could pick and choose that. But again, this is going to be deprecated apparently in the next release, from what I understand in the readmes. Sorry, in the release notes. I'm going to pick enhanced replication, right? I'm going to go next. Over here again, there's my web. It was selected. I'll go next. Now it's asking me, where do I want to put this? Now it's on my vSAN data store. I'm going to put it over onto this other data store. I got a data store called ESXi04 local. It's just a local disk on that host. You may be replicating from one data store to another, one vSphere cluster to another. Again, totally fine. You could do that. Now notice the disk format here. I'm going from a vSAN in my demo here. I'm going from a vSAN to just a regular data store. It's saying, what disk format do you want the VM to have? I'm going to say I want it to go thin provisioned, right? Or I can say same as source. I'm going to say thin provisioned. Also, you can specify a storage policy. Imagine going between two different vSAN clusters. I want to have VMs being backed up over to this one cluster and then this cluster being backed up to that one. You can do stuff like that. I could actually say, okay, I'm doing a failure to tolerate on that first cluster, and I'm going to replicate it to the second cluster, but I'm going to do a RAID 5 to save space. So you could do stuff like that if you want to, right? I believe that's new in version 9 or 8 dot something. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to say, leave the default here. Select seed disk. If I select this and I go next, again, I got no seed disk here. A seed disk is, let's say this VM is 10 terabytes in size, right? And I'm going to go and replicate this. What it does, it has to do an initial sync first, and that means it's got to make a complete copy of that VM across the wire and dump it at that destination. And if it's like 10 terabytes, that's a lot of data that's getting dumped across. If you want to avoid that, you can make an initial copy, manually walk it over or somehow get it over to that other data store and upload it, right? You know, maybe on a USB stick or something like that. I don't have any seeds here. So when it sees that, if you say, oh, okay, select a seed disk and you pick it, it'll look at the source and the new seed disk, and it'll do like a checksum and seeing what's different between them. So it's a lot faster. You don't have to dump everything across the wire. I don't have a seed. I'm going to leave it alone. Auto include new disk and replication. So I'm going to replicate this VM, right? Suppose if all of a sudden I want to add a second disk to it. By me selecting this, it'll automatically include that disk for replication. So this is all good. I can also configure data stores per disk if I want to at the top here. So if I have multiple virtual disks in this VM, I can say, don't put this disk on that data store, that disk on another data store. You can do stuff like that. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to go next. I don't know why it skipped that screen there. Anyways, so recovery point objectives. Notice I can go as low as 5 minutes all the way up to 24 hours. Hey, hang on a second. Didn't we say enhanced replication has a 1 minute recovery point objective? That's if you've got Site Recovery Manager. Remember, I'm showing you this without Site Recovery. I'm a small business. I just need some way of protecting my VMs. So now a recovery point objective is, one way to look at this is how much data you're willing to lose. Remember, vSphere replication is a software replication solution. It's basically asynchronous. That means we're not synchronizing disks. That's done at a hardware level on some kind of storage area network. Watch my Site Recovery Manager videos if you're interested in that. So this here basically says how much data am I kind of willing to use, recovery point objective. Now, obviously, everybody's going to say, I'm not willing to lose any data. Well, then you better spend the big bucks and buy a storage subsystem and do synchronized replication between storage subsystems, big dollars. So if you don't have that as an option, this is better than nothing. Now you might go, well, I'm going to set all VMs to 5 minutes. There are limits on this, okay? Also, that could also stress your system, especially if all these VMs are being changed quite often. It may miss the recovery point objectives here. If it can't make a recovery point objective, let's say I set it to 10 or whatever, let's say I set it to 30 minutes. If my environment's so busy and there's so many changes going on in the VM, if it can't do that, if it can't meet this recovery point objective, it does generate alerts inside vSphere. And at that point, you got to look and say, okay, maybe we're too aggressive here. Maybe I need a bigger bandwidth between, or maybe I need to increase the recovery point objective, right? So again, notice again, you can go 24 hours to 5 minutes. There is a limit on the number of ones you can have for 5 minutes, right? You could also enable point-in-time instances. For example, when I selected it says 3 instances per day, so I want to keep 3 copies each day and retain them for 5 days. This would be, one way to look at this is like snapshots, right? This would be just in case something happens. Like, for example, if I didn't select this and I'm replicating, okay, over to wherever it's going to, all of a sudden the VM gets a virus. Well, it's going to get replicated, right? So much for that. With a recovery, with a multi-point in time instance or point in time instance, if all of a sudden I go, oh shoot, I noticed I got a virus today. Well, I could probably go back to yesterday's instance and restore that. Okay, yeah, I lose today's work, but there's no more virus or whatever the case may be. There's no more hack or whatever. Okay, I'm not going to worry about that here. I'm going to leave this at 5 minutes just to show you this a little faster. Now, by the way, like I said, what it actually tries to do underneath the covers with the recovery point objective is it tries to meet, like if I set it to 10 minutes, it's going to try and do it within 5. Okay. And it learns over time. It's got the data. It's got a database, right? The management server has a database. It learns over time, and it's intelligent. So it goes, oh, I know that this VM basically has an average. This is how much blocks usually change on average, and it takes me maybe it takes me 30 seconds to update everything. So it knows, okay, I gotta update everything before that 10-minute mark, right? If it's gonna take 5 minutes for me to update everything, then it's got to say, well, I got to start replicating at the 4-minute mark so I can meet that 10-minute mark, right? So again, it does have some built-in intelligence. Like I said, I'm just going to leave it at 5 minutes here just for my demo, right? Enable guest OS quiescing, probably a good thing to do here. When I click on this, OS quiescing enables it with a minimum recovery point objective of 5 minutes, right? The current RPO is not supported. So what they're telling me is, okay, you can use it at your own discretion. In other words, they're saying I should be changing this to 15 minutes if I'm doing a guest quiescing. And what I'm going to remove that. Guest quiescing is, one way to look at it is let's make sure everything gets flushed out to the disk type of thing using, like if it's Microsoft, using volume shadow copy services. And VMware Tools works with all this stuff. You can also do it certain flavors of Linux as well. But again, it requires latest version of VMware Tools. So this is probably something you're going to probably want to enable, but notice again, it says I can't do a 5-minute RPO. Network compression for VR sounds pretty darn good to me. If I click on the little information box here, it says it can reduce bandwidth. Well, that's compression. That sounds like a good thing. But again, it can chew up some CPU resources. All right. So if you're pretty tight on your CPU resources, you may want to disable that. I'm going to leave it alone. Enable network encryption. Notice that I don't get a choice of deselecting this. When I picked enhanced replication, it uses, so it says enhanced replication requires network encryption. End of story, right? And then notice over here, enable data store set replication. Again, provides a way to, these data sets are a feature that's new in vSphere 8 to allow the vSphere client to talk to the VM type of thing. I was still not 100% clear on some of that stuff there and how it gets used, but there's some files there, or data set files in your VM. It's a new feature of version 8, where we're going to replicate all those across. So it doesn't look like enhanced replication supports that. Anyways, so I'm just going to leave that alone. I'm going to go next. Summary screen, I'm going to go finish. Great. Let me hit the refresh button here. Oh, came up with an error. What's going on? Oh, there we go. Success. Notice the little green box there. It's kind of going across. And let's do a refresh here. And refresh. There, initial sync. All right. So it's now copied everything across. Initial sync. There we go. It's a small VM, so it's not that big. There we go. So initial sync is done, and then it should go. Right. So we caught it at that point there when it said error. We just caught it just at the point where it's starting to configure it, right? So there we go. Boom. It's okay now. So we're good at this point, okay? I could, if I want to, say sync now, right? I could do a recover if I want to as well. I could also reconfigure this if I like, right? Maybe I want to change it to legacy mode or whatever, or the target or whatever the case may be. So I can go through it and reconfigure that. All right, so that was setting it up, which is pretty straightforward, to be honest with you, right? Just a couple things that you got to watch out for. Let me stop the recording. We're going to come right back. I got a couple other things I want to show you. Okay, so we're back. I always like to stop my recordings in case something crashes. I don't have to do everything all over again. All right, let's do a recover. I'm going to click on recovery here. Now you'll notice it says synchronize recent changes. If you want, let's say you've got two sites, okay? Just for argument's sake, you got two sites there, and you want to recover on one site, and maybe you want to do a test or something like that, and the original is still intact. That's what this synchronize recent changes, okay? That means, oh, okay, the original is still there. Let's update everything, and then we'll recover, right? That's great if you're doing maybe some kind of test, right? Or you can say use latest available data set, right? Here, the power on virtual machine after recovery is obvious, I think. Use the latest available data means, let's say that original is not there. It's gone, and it's time for you now to recover. That's what this one's about. So let me cancel this. Let me go into here. Let me right-click on this. Power off. Go into replications. Notice it's not active. I'm going to select this now and say recover. All right, and I can't do synchronize. I just deleted the other one, right? So let's go next, and I'm going to recover it. Whatever, I'll say discovered virtual machines. I'm going to recover it on that other machine over there, the one I replicated it to, because it's on that disk there. It says the network device recovered will be disconnected. Ensure the source machine is available. Okay, that's fine. So it's just basically saying, hey, the network card's not going to be connected. You can connect that later. They just don't want a conflict, right? So you go recover, all right? And if I hit, just give it a few seconds here, and it's recovered. The machine recovered successfully. These are small VMs here that I have. They're not that big, okay? If I go back into here, my inventory, if I open up, there it is now, Web 1. Okay, you can see it's powering up. It's not connected to any network. Let's see if it's not. Yeah, it's not connected to a network. If I go edit settings, then I would have to pick the port group that it's going on to. Notice it's not connected. I'll say, I'll connect that one. So let's connect it. Let's say okay. So you can see, oh, okay, it failed. All right. Anyways, so you'll see it actually recovered from there, right? I can actually migrate it back if I wanted to. So the difference between this, again, if you've seen my Site Recovery Manager video, Site Recovery Manager is much more automated process, and I can recover a bunch of VMs all at the same time with recovery plans. Whereas with this vSphere application, it's one VM at a time you're recovering. Okay, so it's not as near as fancy as Site Recovery Manager. Let me right-click on Web 2 here. Let's configure replication just to show you something. Say we're going to replicate here. I'll do enhanced. Come on. Okay, there's Web 2. Okay, I'll say thin provisioned. I'm going to put it back on to 4. I'm going to go next. I'll do a 5-minute recovery. I'm just going to leave everything as the default. I'm going to go next. I'm going to go finish. And it's configuring that VM. I'm going to notice over here, that one says it's recovered now. Configuring. It's not active. Notice down here at the bottom saying it was successfully configured. If I keep clicking on this not active, vSphere replication will not replicate a VM. Let me just click on this and say it looks like it was configured successfully. Notice it's not replicate. It's not going to replicate a VM unless it's running, which kind of makes sense, all right? Because you're not using it. Why bother replicate it? So let's power it on. Let's power on Web 2. And power on. And then let's see what happens now. Come on. We have to wait a few minutes here. Initial sync, okay? So you see their initial sync, and it'll continue on from there. Or if I hit this, it should be pretty fast. Initial sync. So anyways, it'll go through and do its replication. All right. There's one more thing I want to show you folks, all right? And this I kind of promised in the beginning, what to watch out for, Okay, so let me again just stop the recording and start a new one. Okay, so right now I've got a Windows 10 VM here. This one here is fairly kind of large. All right, let me kill that. Let me kill this. And let me kill that. Okay. All right. So right now let's dismiss. So let's look at the summary of Windows 10. Where is it running? It's running on host 2, okay? Host 2. So let's go in and connect to host 2. This is that little part that I promised I'd show you. So let's go to host 2. Log in, root. And let's just make our fonts a little bit bigger. Appearance, change. Let's go to 14. Say okay. Apply. I'm going to run this tool on the NSX top. I'm going to hit N to go into the network view. All right. Now, let me show you something here. All right. So if I look at my, let's actually start replicating this. Let's set this up. Right click on it. Scroll down. Set recovery. Configure replication. All right. Okay. I'm going to replicate to here. Enhance replication. I'm going to pick. And I'll go to Windows 10, and then it's a disk format. I'll leave it at the same. Okay, I'll put it to the local disk here. Yeah, I should have enough disk space on that thing. Auto include new disk. Okay, all that stuff is fine. I'm gonna go next. I'm gonna do a 5-minute RPO. Again, not a good idea to be doing that. Just for my demo, I'm doing this to show you stuff. I'm gonna go next. I'm gonna go finish. All right, and let's refresh this screen here. And it's configuring. Okay, so it says the configuration was successful. So I want to see that initial sync going on. Initial sync. Let's go back into here. And so far I'm looking at the network traffic here. Let's look at VMNIC 0. Actually, sorry, if I look over here, VM kernel 0. And let's change this to update every 2 seconds. We see that VM kernel 0 has got a lot of traffic getting dumped across it. Megabytes transmitted, right? And then you'll actually see, again, VMNIC 0. So we see it's replicating right now. It's doing that initial sync. It's going across VMNIC 0 here. You can see the numbers here, which is VM kernel 0. That's my management. So by default, it's using my management network to send all this replication traffic, which is probably not a good idea. Because now all of a sudden, if you've got all this traffic going across your application, you may have issues managing your host, right? So really not a good idea. So let me actually stop, go back in here, and let's see if I can just let's remove it gracefully. Yeah, okay. Let's stop that. I'm going to remove it. Okay. All right. So I just removed it. We'll do it again. What I want to do now is like, well, I don't want to use my management network, so I need to set something up a little bit more special. So let's go into my vSphere environment. Let me show you what I got here. If I click on my, oops, sorry about that, folks. If I click on my distributed switch, you'll see I got a port group management, production, vMotion, vSAN. If I go to my host, let's just look at one of my hosts in the clusters here. If I go to configure virtual switches, you'll see I've got, again, a port group management. It's going across these uplinks. If I click on management, it's using the uplinks 1 and 2, which is VMNIC 0 and VMNIC 1, my first 2 NICs. vMotion, I got it using those first 2. vSAN is using the NICs 3 and 4 uplink, VMNIC 2 and VMNIC 3, if I open those up. So you'll see it. So I've got basically a distributed switch with 4 NICs. 2 of them are dedicated to vSAN. The other 2 are just used for whatever else. So maybe I want to do, what I want to do here is create a port group for replication traffic. So let's go into here. Let's go to my distributed switch. I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to go distributed port group, new distributed port group, and I'm going to type in pg-production. Sorry, not production, sorry. Port group replication. Okay, I'm going to go next. Whatever bindings there. I'm going to go customize. Notice when I click this, I'll see all the advanced options. I could specify a VLAN or whatever the case may be. I don't have that set up in my environment. In the real world, you'd probably have, I want a VLAN for vMotion, VLAN for management, VLAN for replication, VLAN for et cetera, okay? I'm going to go next. All right? I don't care about the security settings here. I'm going to go next. Traffic shape, and again, I'm going to leave that alone. NIC teaming, this is what I want to go in here. So right now it says, okay, I'm going to use all four physical cards for this. I'm going to say, no. I don't want you using my vSAN uplinks, right? I'm going to move those down to unused. So it'll never use those NICs, right? Let me get rid of that. Then I'm going to say maybe use uplink 2 as the active uplink and uplink 1 as the standby. All right. I could do something like that, or I could say use them both active, whatever. I'm just going to flip it over to that. So this uplink 2 would be vMNIC 1 at this case. Let's say next. I don't care about all this other stuff, and then next. If you don't know those settings, watch my switching videos, right? So there's that port group. Let's go back to my host now. Now we got to configure VM kernel port. So let's go to configure. Let's go to VM kernel adapters, and let me add networking. I'm going to say I want to add a VM kernel adapter. Go next. Do I want to put it on an existing network? Yeah, the one I just created. So port group replication. I'm going to go next. Again, my jumbo frames is enabled. I set that up as a default on my switch, which is good. This is the big one here. You want to enable services vSphere replication and vSphere replication network file copy. You want to select both of those, and you go next. Now, how am I setting the IP address on this? This is host 1. This is the IP address for it, it's subnet, and then I'm going to basically say override the default gateway 40.10. Is that the one I want? Yes. Okay. And I'm going to go next and finish. So I now need to repeat that process on these other hosts. So let's go back in here, add networking, VM kernel. Let's pick that port group replication. And we want to go with vSphere replication, NFC, static, and this will be 40.52, 55, override that, and this will be 40.10. Yep, that's host 2. Go next. And last but not least, I guess I could have got away with just the one, but anyways, let's just do the whole thing. VM kernel network. Let's pick that replication. Let's, again, all that stuff looks good. Let's pick vSphere replication and NFC. Give it a static address. 40.53 sounds good. Override that and put in 40.10, and then that's good. And I'm finished. Okay? So I've just set that up now. Okay? Let's go and configure replication. Let's do it again on that big VM. Right click on the Windows stand. Not that big, bigger than the other two. I'm going to scroll down to site recovery, configure replication. Okay, we'll pick that. I'll go enhance. I'll leave that. I'll pick the host 4. I don't care about this setting. I'll go next. I'll do a 5-minute RPO. And I'll go. Oh, by the way, just in regards with the RPO, it doesn't mean, okay, I'm going to replicate every 5 minutes. So if I set my stopwatch, every 5 minutes I should see it replicating? No, because if it did that, it would miss the 5-minute RPO, right? So it's got to be replicating well before it hits that 5-minute target, okay? So just a little FYI, a lot of people say, if I set it to here, which is 30 minutes, it's going to replicate every 30 minutes. If it replicated every 30 minutes, it would miss the 30-minute RPO. It's got to replicate before that and get it all done before the 30-minute mark, okay? So that's basically what it means. I'm going to leave this down to 5, all right? So let's go next and then finish. And then let's just wait for it to come up. This is like the bonus stuff I was mentioning before. Okay, it's configuring. Give it a few seconds. Configuring. It's not active. Just wait for that initial sync to kick in. Come on. There we go. So it's kicked in, right? So you see it's actually replicating now. Let's go back to here. And what do we see here? Let's not make a liar out of me. Okay, so what do you see here? Okay, did you notice it all of a sudden dropped off? This is my management interface, right? So right now, again, I'm going through SSH right now, so it's going through this VM kernel interface, right? But the replication traffic, and now see the replication traffic is going through this VMNIC 1, okay? Not VMNIC 0 anymore. And where's VM kernel 3? Right here, VM kernel 3. So you see that entry. I wish I could highlight them both at the same time. And this entry are the same. That's where my replication traffic is going through. So you want to do this. You definitely want to say, all right, we're going to be setting up replication. We need to set up a dedicated network for the replication traffic. All right. And by the way, that has to be routable back to the management server. It's got to be able to talk to that. If not, you get an error. All right. So this is why when I showed you, I said override the default gateway, and I put in the gateway of my my management network so we can get back that vSphere replication management server. But that's it, folks. It's replicating and everything's looking good there. So just leave that alone for a while and it's done. Again, I hope you found this beneficial. I've had a few comments on people asking me just about this. Leave your comments and questions down below. Please don't use my email address for questions. Leave the comments and questions down below because that helps out with the YouTube analytics, right? Like, share the videos. Leave if there's something you want to see me cover, please leave it in the comments section down below. I'll see what I can do. I'm only one person, right? And some stuff I may not have access to, but I'm working through the list. If you put something in there, I've written it down. I'm working through the list. But that's about it. Thanks very much, and you have a great day. See you in the next one. Bye for now.